Hey there, I'm Anthony Romano, and I'm going to answer the question, do you burn more fat on keto in this video? And the answer is yes. So there you go. You can leave it out. No, I'm going to explain this in this video because I'm going to be using some work from Jeff Volek and Dr. Phinney, and of course all their associates from the FASTER study, which basically demonstrates how the human body burns fat more when you're in a ketogenic state in ultra-adapted or ultra-marathon runners from a group which were keto adapted and ones who were carb adapted, okay? This video will explain that, and this is, in my opinion, one of the most important studies on this matter. And for any of you who watch my videos, you know I've been doing keto for 9 years, and I never shut the hell up about how beneficial it can be in an athletic environment and also a daily lifestyle environment, and how, you know, in evolutionary history, carbs don't grow half the year, lots of other stuff like that. But this is the data, and this is a more scientific, review of some of the most important keto facts out there. So if you could like the video, that will make YouTube show my videos to more people, and that's what you can do to help me grow my page. And, let's get into it. So, as a side note, I also have a ketone supplement giveaway, which can help you achieve some of the benefits which I'm about to explain, and the rules are in the description. Read them to figure out how you can win some free ketone supplements that are high quality and not just BS from marketers like most of the other supplements out there for keto. So, when we're looking at the FASTER study, okay, this study took a group of ultra-marathon runners, and half of them were on a ketogenic diet and half of them were on a carbohydrate diet, a high-carb diet. And the key distinction here is that this study allowed the low-carb group to be keto-adapted. Okay, this is a common flaw in most studies that talk about ketogenic diets because they often don't allow the person's body to get physiologically adapted to using fat as the primary fuel. Volek and Phinney and associates obviously know this, and they're some of the, most important resources out there scientifically on ketogenic dieting and low-carb dieting, and this is obviously something they were aware of. So I'm going to explain the benefits here, and I know the common things that people will throw against this, the common counter arguments are going to be, oh, but all that matters is your calories. Keto is it's just water weight loss. It's just an appetite suppressant. Look, I will explain those claims at the end of this video, but it's simply not true. There are two sides of the coin of body composition and metabolic health. You have the quantitative side, which focuses on looking at totals of things, total calories, total protein. That's what people look at. And then you have the qualitative side, which looks at the quality of your calories and the quality of certain nutrients you're getting in your diet. And that's obviously the approach I like to merge together. I like to merge the two because that is how you achieve balance in life. So let's get into this study, FASTER study, Volek and Phinney. Essentially, the key takeaways from this study are, on one hand, that the low-carb group, so the keto group, was burning 2.3-fold higher fat, okay? They were simply, for the same amount of exercise, they were burning 2 times and an additional 30% of the same amount of fat that was being oxidized in the high-carb group. So we know for a fact that their body was physically churning through more body fat as fuel. Now, granted, some of this may have came from food, from dietary fat, okay? But again, this simply just allows us to understand the principle that when you are in a ketogenic state, doesn't matter where the fat comes from, right? Whether it's from your plate or from, your body, there's a simple way to manipulate this and make sure it's from your body. It's simply by consuming less calories and not overeating, okay? There's other ways to scale this back and further dive into the fat loss pool, and this is what my other videos explain. But the main point here is that when you are fat adapted, your body's going to burn through more fat. Wow, shocking revelation, okay? But this is just the hard data on it. Now, the main surprising takeaway here is that the low-carb group was also using glycogen and carbohydrates more efficiently. So why was this? Okay, now keep in mind as well, the high-carb group was still burning through a lot of fat, okay? More fat than the average person because these are ultra marathon runners, okay? They're athletic individuals. So even then, their body was still producing ketones, still breaking down fat as fuel, but simply nowhere near the amount that the low carb group was doing. And when we look at the glucose usage and the glycogen usage between both groups, the low-carb group was sparing more glycogen than the carbohydrate group. And why is this? So this basically means that the low-carb group was using their carbohydrate fuel more efficiently, so they weren't wasting as much. Now, if you know anything about the Krebs cycle, the citric acid cycle, carbohydrate metabolism creates some waste, okay, cellular waste, in the form of pyruvate, because essentially there's more steps involved in the cycle to create energy, ATP. So when we are looking at the carbohydrate group, not only are they using a fuel that is going to create more cellular waste, right? They're not even using it as efficiently. Okay, so the low carb group was using that high speed, quick digesting fuel, the emergency fuel, carbohydrates. That's what carbs are to your body. They were using that fuel in a manner that was less wasteful, and generally, the implication is that it's only being used for activity or moments of activity that truly require it, okay? And that is how we would have evolved. We would have evolved using carbohydrates only when necessary. So perhaps during a peak sprint at one point in these marathon activities that they had the participants doing, perhaps for a couple seconds of every, few strides, there was a little bit of carbohydrate being used, a little bit of glucose being liberated into the bloodstream, okay? Things like that could be some of the implications here. But the main point is that even on a low-carb diet, you will get more efficient use of carbohydrate fuel. And this is another reason why I always advocate for people to just simply get into ketosis at some point in the year, okay? Cut out carbohydrates for some point in the year, and eventually, you now have unlocked your metabolic flexibility. You can now have periods of time where you eat your carbs. You can have a balanced lifestyle where you jump back and forth between the two lifestyles, and I have plenty of videos on that, but essentially that will give you the most optimal health benefits and metabolic benefits specifically. So, and if you're an athlete, this is huge. All the best athletes in the world have amazing abilities to maintain low blood glucose and keep it stable. This is why they're so damn good. This is why players who are just shredded, like Cristiano Ronaldo, or athletes that are just in great shape, can always be the clutch game winner, because their blood sugar's stable. They're still able to perform at a high level without bonking and crashing and playing worse because their sugar's crashed, because they have an ability to maintain stable glucose even after long periods of time.
And moreover, show an absolutely spectacular protection from low blood sugar. Just unbelievable, this data. It'll never be replicated, I doubt, because of IRBs now. But this is really, truly spectacular. And I will just add, this is a unique form of neuroprotection, but for athletes, this is what bonk proof is. I mean, hitting the wall is an energy crisis in the brain where it doesn't have adequate glucose. And even though you may have some ketones available, I do believe there's some adaptation period that's required, because if you've hit the wall, I don't know if anybody in here is a runner or endurance athlete, and have you hit the wall? It's a very memorable experience, right? It's sort of a catastrophic type fatigue, and it's primarily an energy crisis in the brain, and yet these keto adapted athletes seem completely protected from it.
Okay, this is seriously one of the key distinctions of being a good athlete, and you can watch my other videos on that too if that's something you're interested in. But this is another reason why it is important to maintain that low blood glucose, and well, not necessarily low, but stable glucose when you are an athlete, okay? Also, I have a keto shredding guide, which is dropping very soon, the Keto Shred program, and this is implementing all the research and tactics that I've discovered and researched and applied, and professionally applied with clients over the past 9 years. Essentially, this is what's going to help you get the most effective results out of a ketogenic diet for fat loss, and it uses a lot of the research from this video. So, another great implication of this study is that because the people who were on the low-carb diet had such higher VO2 max, this means that they can uptake more oxygen and basically use oxygen more efficiently, okay? And if you hold your breath for longer than a minute, you'll realize that you need oxygen to live. And I have another video called The Scientific Discovery That Scientists Should Be Losing Their Minds About, or something like that, because literally, ketogenic states allow you to use oxygen more efficiently. You can uptake more oxygen, and there's even divers who will get into a ketogenic state so they can hold their breath longer, okay? There's some work where people are experimenting with ketone supplements to allow a similar phenomenon, but I'm not as familiar with the research on that at the moment. Just generally familiar compared to my standard of what I like to be familiar with. This is huge, because this also means you can uptake more oxygen, and this may also be why some low-carb athletes are dominating their sport field. If you look at the Tour de France, if you look at any sort of endurance sport, a lot of the best top dogs are low carbohydrate advocates, okay? You have people who are the top Ironman winners. You have people who are the best skiers. You have people who are literally in Tour de France and in, cycling, professional cycling. You have people who are using ketone esters, which are artificial ketone supplements, to put them into deep ketosis so they have better oxygen availability and usage, and essentially can perform better for longer amounts of time. So this is a very, well-versed area of science. I encourage you to look into it. The study I'm only referencing today is the FASTER study. And keep in mind, I'm glossing over a lot of the details here because I want this video to be quick and punchy so people can learn about the massive benefits here. Okay, so excuse me if I'm leaving out some details or not clarifying certain things as well as I can. But when we're looking at the implications to you, okay, I'm sure you're not an ultra marathon runner, but you have to change your conception of how fat loss works because, as I said before, and a lot of other processes in the body, they are dualistic. They have this consequentialist side, this quantitative side, and they have this qualitative side, okay? They have the quantity and the quality, and you have to merge the two. There is no one without the other. There's two sides to every coin. You cannot have a coin with only one side. It does not exist. So that is my personal perspective on a lot of these metabolic issues. And this study perfectly demonstrates the qualitative side. It perfectly demonstrates the hormonal reactions that your body will achieve when you access the ketogenic metabolism. So, granted, are calories still going to dictate how much energy your body needs to acquire from stores in its own body? Yes. Calories and demand is your body's still subject to the laws of economics. Your body's still going to only produce as much fuel from itself as it needs to. But at the same time, for a lot of people, when they drop their insulin, okay, from doing a ketogenic diet, if they're coming from a high carb diet and going to low carb, ketogenic specifically, their insulin is going to drop so much so that the body is receiving a far lower amount of the signal that tells your body to store fat. So that's why for a lot of people, they can still lose weight on keto without cutting calories. But eventually that will plateau at a certain point. But the key takeaway here is you want to merge the two. Even though people will tell you calories are all that matter, or maybe you're saying that on my video. Maybe you're typing that right now. I don't know. The point is, you can maximize your body's engine, which allows it to burn through the fuel if you enter a ketogenic state before the calorie deficit, okay? So understand, when people are explaining, oh, it's all about the quantity of calories, the total calories, they're basically telling you, if you're in a car, how far you have to drive. But when you take the keto approach, we're souping up your engine first, and then telling you to drive the same distance. Well, if you have a better engine, you're going to get there faster. Okay, that's essentially the, analogy I'm trying to make here. There's not just only the total quantity of distance, there's the tools, the machinery you're working with. And if you can optimize that first and then manage the two sides of the coin, that's where you'll get the most effective result. Okay? And if you're interested in this stuff, I have a keto shredding guide, which is coming out very soon, which is going to implement these tactics to the most effectiveness. Okay? Excuse me if this video was glossing over some key points of the study. So if you're anybody who was involved in the study, apologies if I glossed over some details. But at the end of the day, I believe I gave a pretty succinct review of this study as far as it applies to people who are trying to burn fat. Maybe that's you. Okay, now, if you could subscribe and like the video and follow me on Instagram, that would be great. Peace.